Hi everyone, it's Bricks on Bricks here for another video, and today I'm going to be doing a new type of video, and today I'll be reviewing the first installment of Ninjago, or Ninjago's Beginning, and today I will be reviewing the pilots. And I'll basically, throughout the video, I'll be having a few different sections. First I'll talk about the plot, then I'll talk about the pros, then I'll talk about the cons, then I'll be giving the entire installment an overall score out of 10, so without further ado, let's get right on into the plot. So getting into the basic plot of the pilots, we start out with Kai in a blacksmith shop, and he's a pretty bad blacksmith. Sister's way better, so yeah, we started out with that, until eventually the Skulkin show up, and we have Samu, Kai, Cruncha, and Knuckle, who all show up, and Kai kinda sucks at fighting. He's okay, but he's not really good or anything like that. But eventually, Master Wu shows up from when Master Wu showed up earlier in the episode, when he was trying to see if he could recruit Kai as a ninja, but he kind of declined the offer. But when the Skulkin kidnapped Nia after the battle, Kai agrees to train with Master Wu. So then we get an epic training scene with Kai and Master Wu. And then, eventually, the night after Kai almost finishes his training, Kai's basically finished with his training at this point. The other ninjas show up, and they think he's some sort of, intruder or something. And that's kind of the cliffhanger for the first 11-minute episode if you're watching it in the 11-minute episode format. So then, getting right on into it, Wu shows up and sorts things out, and then the ninja realize they're all on the same team, and he gives each of them their robes. And then they set out on a mission to get the Scythe of Quakes, where they go in there and they battle some Skulkin. Because Kai kind of screws them up, because Kai is way too cocky. This kind of sets up Kai being cocky. And also, before they went on the mission, Jay's like, "Are we saving a girl? Is she hot?" That's one of the most hilarious Jay lines I've ever seen. But yeah, they go right on in there. There's a big battle with the Skulkin, and Jay is the first one to learn Spinjitzu. And then eventually they all learn Spinjitzu, and they defeat those Skulkin, and go ahead and get that Scythe of Quakes. And then that basically ends the second 11-minute episode if you're watching it in the 11-minute format, or the first 22-minute episode if you're watching it in the 22-minute format. Then we go ahead and get to a few small, I would say montages, but it's not really a montage, but it's similar to one. So we start with the ninjas on some sort of boat that is sort of similar to the Destiny's Bounty, and they're going ahead and getting the shurikens of ice. So yeah, they go to this ice world and get those, and then we kind of get a quick scene of them climbing up this lightning rod to get the nunchucks of lightning, but they're being chased by the Skulkin. And then eventually all they need is the Sword of Fire, but Kai thinks he can go out on his own to get that Sword of Fire. So yeah, Kai, you're pretty cocky. But yeah, Kai goes ahead and tries to get the Sword of Fire and save his sister on his own. So he goes to the Fire Temple and he tries to do that, but Shadow Garmadon shows up and they have a pretty good duel. And then Kai kind of fails, but then Wu shows up, and Wu saves Kai, but Garmadon still gets the Sword of Fire, but then Wu decides to go down to the underworld, so he kind of falls down this lava fall drinking tea. Kind of weird, but yeah, that's what he does. Then we go ahead and get back with the other ninja, and yeah, they're all they all get their weapons stolen by the Skulkin, so now the ninjas have no golden weapons, and then they try to chase the Skulkin on the trucks, but they kind of fail. So then eventually they meet back up with Kai, and they realize that dragons can travel to the underworld, so yeah, they go ahead and meet up with Kai, and go travel to the underworld. And then Jay loses his voice, of course. And then getting into the last 11-minute episode, it's in the underworld, and the ninjas are battling the Skulkin, but then eventually they realize something Wu said earlier in the installment, and they realize how to use the Tornado of Creation, and they make this giant Ferris wheel to put the Skulkin in as a prison cell. So yeah, pretty weird, but yeah, that's what they do.
And then they go ahead and see what's going on with Wu and Samukai, and Wu and Samukai are in a big battle, but Wu basically loses. Samukai gets all the golden weapons, and he's about to basically blow up because he can't handle, all the power from the 4 golden weapons. So, as he's holding them, he slowly blows up, which creates a portal for Garmadon to go through, and Garmadon leaves the underworld, not after having this epic monologue, of course, and then we get the ending, of the episode with the ninjas kind of, all back around the monastery area, or Kai's blacksmith shop area, I think, actually. So they're all back around that area, and yeah. And then they're like, we'll be ready for what's next. And that pretty much ends with the plot for this installment, so I'll go ahead and get into
pros and cons. So getting into the overall pros for the pilot installment, I am personally a big supporter of this installment. I really enjoy it. It is actually in my top 5 Ninjago installments. In fact, it is my number 4. And here are all the reasons I would say that this installment is that good. Number 1. As much as the Skulkin are weak villains, I think they are at least decent villains. Number 2, I really love Garmadon's overall presence throughout this installment. Number 3, Master Wu is really great. Yes, he has a couple strange lines and strange moments, but I just feel like those go with this character. Number 4, Kai is really good. And number 5, it introduces all the characters really well, and it sets up the locations that appear later in the series really well as well. And it has a great ending that somewhat sets up the next season. So yeah, those would be my pros for this installment. Now going on to the cons for this installment, I do have a few, but honestly I really enjoyed this installment, and you'll see that in the score out of 10, so I really don't have that many cons. But talking about the few I do have, number 1, the Skulkin could be just a bit better, and I wish Samukai was a bit more fleshed out. And number 2, there are a few moments where there's some weird dialogue, but literally, that is it. Those are my only cons for this entire installment, and now let's go ahead and see what the score out of 10 is going to be. Okay, so now that I have talked about the plot, my pros, and my cons, I am finally ready to give this season, or these first 2 episodes of the entire show of Ninjago that we know and love, a score out of 10, and overall good installment. I really liked quite a few things from it. I had 5 pros and only 2 cons, and honestly the cons weren't even that big to me, so overall I think I'm going to give this a 9 out of 10 for everything I just listed. I really enjoyed this installment, had lots of stuff to love in it, so yeah, overall 9 out of 10 for me, definitely in my top 5 Ninjago installments. So yeah, that about does it for this video. Thank you guys for watching, and stay tuned for more videos with footage like this.